Hello, folks. Welcome into episode 2 of HuPAC TALK. This is my show where I discuss the stories I want to talk about when I want to talk about them, and I am, of course, your host, HuPAC. Today, I want to talk about how the New York Knicks finally broke through to the conference finals, taking down the Boston Celtics in 6 games at a raucous Madison Square Garden last night. You know, prior to the game, I definitely had my doubts about whether they would be able to take down the Tatumless Celtics, but they got the job done with little drama, and they're moving on to face Indiana in the conference finals. Out west, we still have some sorting out to do with Game 7 between the Thunder and Nuggets tonight. Should be a good one, you know. I'm really not impressed with the Thunder. I'm really not. The Nuggets are weak. I think Aaron Gordon's in question. The game is at home for OKC, so, you know, we'll see what happens. But I wouldn't be surprised if OKC wins if they get taken down in the conference finals by Minnesota. Because, quite frankly, I see a team that rushed out to this fantastic regular season record and is in peril of not just dropping this series, but definitely the next one, should they get there. And this, I think, speaks to a broader point about these NBA playoffs. The parity of the NBA, really, but also just the fact that the regular season, you can have a fantastic record and it just doesn't mean that much. I mean, I'm not going to say the Rockets had a great record. They didn't. But they were still the number 2 seed in the West. And, you know, didn't matter. They got taken out. Same thing with the Cavaliers. Same thing now with the Celtics. And you can point to the Tatum injury, but the fact of the matter is when he went out in game whatever it was, game 4, the team was trailing by 7. It was late in the game, and all the momentum was in the Knicks' favor. I'm not sure if they have Tatum last night, Celtics win that game. I'm actually pretty damn sure they won't. So, you know, it's really interesting. I think it just speaks to the fact that the NBA's regular season is not only too long, but also kind of meaningless. The quality of the games is poor. You watch the games. There's no defense, you know. It's painful. There's a reason I don't switch it on until we get to April. So as interesting as all that is, though, I think I really want to talk about the success of the teams that advanced to the conference finals, namely the Pacers and the Knicks, and less about the teams who underperformed once again. Though in the Celtics case, they did win last year, so, you know, a little bit of the pressure's taken off. However, they have a number of questions coming up this offseason that are going to be quite interesting to see how they handle, what with their some of their aging pieces like Al Horford, as well as just more expensive bench players like Sam Hauser and Peyton Pritchard. But no, I want to talk about the ascendance of the Indiana Pacers. This team comes out year after year. Okay, year literally after year, this year after last year, and they just come out and they just roll in waves. You know, they don't really have an ascendant superstar, but their defense has really risen, taken on the challenge of defending some of these other stars that they faced against, what with Donovan Mitchell this past round and Giannis and Dame Lillard the round before. And it's been impressive to see how they've handled the pressure, but ultimately, I'm not sure it matters as much as you would expect. Be that as it may, however, ultimately, I think it's their offense that is really frustrating. They run the swing action with Halliburton up at the top of the key. You got all your big men rolling out for threes, what with Siakam and Turner's ability to shoot the three. It makes them a really fearsome offense, and one which kind of reminds me in a similar sense to the Packers wide receiver core from a couple years ago, when they didn't really have any one guy that stood out, and yet the varied attack made them so dangerous. No one's talking about Andrew Nemhard, no one's talking about Aaron Nesmith, but these guys have shown up and shown out in a major way for Indiana. Rick Carlisle has shown a remarkable ability to adapt with his defensive sets and offensively. After dropping Game 3 in Indiana, they came out in Game 4 and took care of business. And I think that speaks to, competent coaching. It speaks to execution on the part of the players. And that's fantastic. And this is a team I see now they're going into the conference finals against a Knicks team that I think, is solid. But I just feel like these Pacers, they don't fear anybody. They're coming after you, and they're going to take care of business. It's a very young team. They have a couple veteran pieces in Turner and Siakam, but these are guys, they don't even know where they're at. They're ready to play, The moment's not too big for them because they don't understand the moment. And that's great. You love seeing this team like this, kind of coming out of nowhere. No one's talking about them all year. They stumble out of the gates to, I think, a 10-15 start. Again, reflecting my point about the NBA regular season. But, they show up in the playoffs and they take care of business. And that's what you want to see, definitely. If you're an Indy fan, I'm not a huge fan of Indy, obviously. They've taken out my Bucks 2 years in a row, and there's definitely been some friction between the two sides when they've met. But, you got to respect the team, And I think that's definitely worth mentioning. With the Knicks, we have a team that seems to just, they struggle. I've never seen a team struggle as much as the Knicks. And yet, ultimately, last night's result notwithstanding, they find a way to get it done. Jalen Brunson is the clutch player of the year for a reason. I mean, you saw this series. You saw other pieces stepping up. You saw OG Anunoby making big shots. You saw Karl Anthony Towns, When he wasn't whining about foul calls, he was taking care of business. And that's great, Love to see it. If you're a Knicks fan, once again. We got all these different media types talking about, the Celtics and their demise and the Cavs and their demise, and understandably so. You see these teams rush out to 60-plus wins, but I think it's more about the teams that took them down that deserve the credit. I'm not even going to sit here and say that the teams they took down were bad or that they failed. I think it speaks more to the success of the teams to the success of Indiana and New York than it does to the failure of Cleveland and Boston. But, it should be a really entertaining Eastern Conference Finals. You have a team in the Knicks that they find a way to get it done consistently, but, man, it is not pretty. Then you got a team in the Pacers that I think is going to win the series, but we'll see. Should be an exciting matchup. Out west, we have the Timberwolves, like I mentioned, showing up and getting to the conference finals. It's going to be really interesting to see how they match up against either the Nuggets or the Thunder. That game's tonight, Game 7. I really don't feel too good about the Thunder's chances. I know technically they should be good. Aaron Gordon's been dealing with some kind of injury. You have the games at home for OKC. Should be raucous. They haven't been to the conference finals since 2016. Ultimately, though, I'm not sure it's going to matter. It just has the feeling of a game that might not go the Thunder's way. I hope it does. I like the Thunder's core of Shea, Chet Holmgren, and Jalen Williams. Jalen Williams had an awful shooting night. I think he was 3 of 16 in Game 6 back in Denver. I think at home, they're going to be able to show out. OKC Stadium, I don't even remember what it's called. Fantastic venue. You watch games there, all the fans wear the same shirt. It's just super hyped. And, I can't wait to watch the game tonight. It should be interesting. I hope OKC wins, but like I said, I'm not confident about their chances. It just has the feeling of a game where Jokic steps up and makes the plays down the stretch that matter. That's pretty much all I've got for now. Mercifully, this is coming to an end. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for tuning in, and this is HuPAC signing off. Thank you.